Let's make the lead to Something by Martin Garrix and Breathe, Carolina. Let's adjust LFO1, make it look like this, turn on trigger, raise up the rate to 1/16, and raise up that smooth. And now we'll send that LFO1 to the global amp, make sure the arrow is going both ways, then raise the amount up to 100, and then I'll automate that LFO rate from 1/16 to 1/4. Now turn on your subs, select saw wave, lower the octave -1, lower that level, turn on your noise. Let's do analog ARP white, raise up your level. Also to A, let's go to digital disc doot, raise up the unison to 7, lower that detune a tiny bit, and raise up this wavetable position. Turn on oscillator B, let's adjust that fine tuning slightly, raise up the unison to 9. Select always on your portamento, and raise it up to about 75 milliseconds. Turn on your filter, and let's go to the flanges and we'll do this phase 48 HL 6 negative. Raise up that cutoff, raise up this HL width, raise up the drive a tiny bit, and turn on your filter for A, B, your noise, and also your sub. Now add on distortion, and I'll do diode 2. I'll leave the drive on 25% and then mix at 100%. Then I'll roll off the low end around 150 Hz. Then I'll add an ambience reverb and some sidechain compression. Let's make the lead to Quantum by Martin Garrix and Brooks. First, I'll set my pitch bend amounts to 3 and -3. Then I'll add some pitch bend automation in my MIDI. Oscillator A, leave it on the default preset. Turn on your noise. Let's do analog bright white. Raise up that level. Turn on oscillator B, leave it on the default preset. Raise up the unison to 16. Lower that detune and lower that level. Let's adjust LFO1, make it look like this. Turn on envelope, turn off BPM, raise up the rate to around 17 Hz. Go to your matrix and select source LFO1. Send that to your global master tuning. Make sure this arrow only goes to the right. Let's go ahead and set the amount to 24, and that's going to give us a pluck sound at the beginning of each note. Now go to your voicing and select mono. Let's add on a tube distortion. Raise up the drive to about 80-90%. Lower the mix to about 80 or 90%. Let's add on a compressor. Then I'll add on the hyper dimension. Lower this mix, lower this size, and raise up the dimension mix. Then I'll add a quarter note delay. Adjust this filter. Then I'll add a really large hall reverb. Then I'll add on another hall reverb. Then EQ8 to roll off the low end. And then a kickstart 2 for some sidechain compression. Let's make the lead to Reboot by Martin Garrix and Blar. Oscillator A, let's do analog basic shapes. Raise up the unison to 16. Turn on oscillator B. Raise up the unison to 16. Turn on your noise. Let's do analog J106 chorus. Raise up that level. Go to LFO1. Turn off BPM. Raise the rate all the way up. Assign LFO1 to the fine tuning of oscillator B. Adjust that modulation. Turn on mono for your voicing. Turn on your filter. Let's do band 12. Turn on for A and B. Adjust the cutoff to 440 Hz. Raise up that resonance to 30%. And raise up that drive to 30%. Now let's add on multi-band compressor. Add on a distortion. Let's do linear fold. Adjust the drive to 10%. Adjust the mix to 70%. Add on a low cut EQ around 150 Hz. Then add a boost around 1 kHz. Add on a kickstart 2 or a sidechain compressor. Add on a hall reverb after that kickstart 2. Then automate that reverb on and off. Then I'll layer that synth with some white noise. Let's make the lead from Loop by Martin Garrix and Dallas K. Oscillator A, raise up the unison to 5, lower that detune. Turn on oscillator B, raise up the unison to 3, lower that detune, and then lower the octave -1. Now adjust your envelope 1 and make it look like this. Now adjust your LFO1, make it look like this. Turn up your rate to 1/8. Turn on trigger. Assign your LFO1 to the level of oscillator A. Adjust the modulation like this. Assign your LFO1 to the level of oscillator B. Adjust the modulation like this. Now let's add an EQ8, taking out the low end and also some of the high end. Then let's add a quarter note delay. Then we'll add a hall reverb. Then an overdrive on top of all that to make it gritty. And then a sidechain compressor.
Like I'm stuck in a loop. I swear I want something new.
Let's make the lead to Limitless by Martin Garrix and Mesto. Set your voice into mono and raise up that portamento. Oscillator A, let's do analog basic shapes, sine wave. Lower the octave -2. Turn on oscillator B. Let's do analog basic shapes, sine wave. Raise up the octave +1 and raise up the semitones to +7. Lower the level of oscillator B a tiny bit. Go to envelope 1, slow down the release a tiny bit, and slow down that attack a tiny bit. Now let's add on a multi-band compressor. Set the ratio to 2:1. Raise up that gain. Now let's add on some distortion. Let's do soft clip. Raise up that drive. Lower the mix a tiny bit. Then I'll turn on the post filter and do a high pass around 180 Hz. Then I'll add an EQ boost around 10 kHz. Then I'll add on some erosion and select wide noise. Then I'll cut off the low end again, and then I'll add a high shelf boost. And then I'll add on an auto pan just to pan it back and forth a tiny bit. Then I'll add some plate reverb, and then I'll just layer that synth with another white noise layer. Let's make the lead to Limitless by Martin Garrix and Mesto and Vital. Oscillator 1, do basic shapes, sine wave. Lower the pitch -24. Turn on oscillator 2, basic shapes, sine wave. Raise up the pitch to 19. Set your voices to 1. Raise up your glide. Turn on legato. Turn on the noise. Let's set it to direct out. Go to your LFO1, select sync. Assign your LFO1 to the panning of your noise. Set the modulation to bipolar. Lower the level. Now let's add on a soft clip distortion. Raise up that drive. Turn on your post filter. Raise up this blend. Lower this resonance. And lower that cutoff. Now let's add on the erosion with the wide noise. Cut off some of that low end. Then add a plate reverb. Then I'll duplicate that synth and create a second layer and add on the pedal distortion and a delay for the Haas effect. Let's make the first drop lead to the Martin Garrix remix of Cocoon. Oscillator A is to analog basic shapes, lower the randomness and raise up that level. Next I'll take this white noise sample and load it into my noise oscillator and raise up that level. And let's go ahead and do direct out for the noise. I'll zoom into your envelope 1 and adjust it like this. Adjust your LFO 1, set it to envelope, set your rate to 1/8 and your delay to 1/8 as well. Assign LFO 1 to the chorus tuning of oscillator A, adjust that modulation. Adjust LFO 2, turn it on to envelope and set your rate to about 11 Hz. Assign LFO 2 to the chorus tuning of oscillator A, adjust that modulation. Let's add on a soft clip distortion, adjust the drive and mix. Add on the hyper dimension, adjust your settings. Then I'll add a low boost around 160 Hz, and then a high shelf. And then I'll add a kickstart 2 for that pumping effect. Let's make the second drop lead to the Martin Garrix remix of Cocoon. Raise oscillator A plus 4 semitones, select sync on your warp knob and raise that up, and go ahead and lower that randomness. Turn on your noise and let's do analog ARP white, lower the level. Go ahead and slow down the attack on your envelope 1. Let's lower oscillator B -2 octave, lower this level, raise up the unison to 3 and lower that detune. And let's go ahead and turn sync on and raise it up. Add on a MG Low 24 filter for A and B. Set your cutoff around 800 Hz, raise up your resonance and drive a tiny bit. Let's add on a multiband compressor. Add on the diode distortion, adjust your drive and your mix. Then I'll add on a notch 12 filter, adjust your cutoff, resonance and drive. Then I'll cut off the low end and some of the top end. I'll add some width with the hyperdimension. Add on a plate reverb and copy these settings. And then add on a kickstart 2 for that pumping effect. Let's make the bass to the Martin Garrix remix of Cocoon. Oscillator A is to analog basic shapes, square wave, lower the octave -2. Oscillator B, lower the octave -1. Raise up the unison to 5 and lower that detune. Turn your voicing on to mono. Adjust your LFO 1. Set it to envelope and set your rate to 1/4. Add on an MG Low 24 filter. Assign your LFO 1 to that cutoff. Adjust that modulation and raise up your drive. Now before that filter, let's add on a compressor and add on a stomp box distortion. Set your drive and mix to 50%. Then I'll add an EQ boost around 150 Hz. And then a kickstart 2 for sidechain compression. Let's make the lead from Pressure by Martin Garrix. Oscillator A, let's do analog basic mini. Raise up the unison to 7. Lower that detune. Raise up the level. Turn on oscillator B. Raise it up 1 octave. Raise up the unison to 5. Lower the level. Go to your envelope 1 and give it a small release. Turn on your filter. Let's do MG Low 24. Turn on for A and B. Raise up your resonance. Raise up your fat. Raise up your drive. Go to your alpha 1. Adjust it a bit like this. Turn on envelope. And then assign your alpha 1 to the cutoff. And adjust the modulation so it looks like this. Now let's add on a multiband compressor. Then I'll add on some distortion. I'm going to do downsample. Let's go ahead and lower that mix. Now let's add on a chorus. Lower that delay. Raise up the low pass filter. Lower the mix. Now let's add on a low cut EQ. And then a tight reverb.